Hi everyone, welcome back. I think we've all kind of come back from the workshops now, by the looks of it. We are ready to begin the Flash Talks. I am Adrian. I think you've met me or heard my voice by now, so I don't think I need to introduce myself. Instead, I would very much like to introduce the 6 Flash Talkers we have today. It's a bit of a snappy program, and we're already over time, so there's going to be 7 minutes for each Flash Talk, and we have made space in each of the Flash Talks for a very brief Q&A, depending on how much, how well the Flash Talkers can keep within the time limits, of course. But I don't want to spend too much time up here, so instead I'll just very quickly like to introduce the 6 talkers we have today. We're going to start off with Amanda Mathieson, who's an Education and Public Engagement Manager at the University College Dublin, and she's going to be talking about STEM rooms. Then we're moving swiftly along to Dania Alkhatib, who is a PhD student at Kyushu University. She's going to be talking about collaborative approaches for cancer control. Then we're moving on to Aileen Cooney, who's a PhD student at the Tokyo Tech and Imperial College in London, and she's going to talk about creative writing in SciCom. Moving along, we have Euan McKay, our very own, who is a project associate professor at Kobe University, talking about the JSF socials. Then we have Jonas Fischer from OIST, who is going to be talking about the TSVP, or the OIST visiting program. And then we're rounding off with Charlotte Falk, who's a graduate student and has been an intern at JSF, and she's going to be talking about the results of data crunching for the JSF. But here at the beginning, I would like to welcome Amanda Mathieson to the stage, and take it away, Amanda.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda, and thank you for having me here today to talk about STEM escape rooms. Now, I've been designing and delivering STEM escape rooms for about 6 or 7 years now. I've spoken about them at various conferences in Europe, but I'm actually really excited to talk about them here today because escape rooms actually originated in Japan. So Takao Kato was one of the first people to actually take a video game-based escape room and translate that into a real-world experience. He did that in 2007. And then by 2011, it started to migrate over to Europe, and by 2014, escape rooms were in every major city around the globe. Now, in 2016, I was in Malta, and we were working on an EU project called STEAM. We were trying to combine STEM with the arts for innovative public engagement formats. So I thought escape rooms would be a really exciting thing to try. One, because they were so popular, but also because escape rooms are puzzle-based, and puzzles really lend themselves well to science. So we tried it twice. We had 2 different types of escape rooms. The second one we evaluated and published a small study about it, if you're interested in that in more detail. But they were really successful, essentially, so I've been doing them ever since. In 2020, I had to change tack a bit. I created my first online escape room that you can play on Zoom, and then we transitioned that back to a physical escape room, which then actually toured Ireland around libraries and schools. And hopefully there'll be a paper about that soon as well, if you're interested in that. But more importantly than what I've been doing, if you were to run a STEM escape room, how would you do it well? So when I was thinking about what would make a good escape room, I took a step back and thought, well, actually, what makes something engaging? So I looked at the literature around intrinsic motivation, and a theory that popped out to me was self-determination theory. So this is the theory that something will be interesting to us if it meets one of these 3 psychological needs. So the need for autonomy, having some control over what happens, competency, the need to challenge yourself, relatedness, social interaction. Escape rooms, you can actually embed all of these 3 things really well. So in terms of autonomy, you can make sure that your puzzles are non-linear to some degree, so you can try them in different order. You can give players ownership over the story. Maybe some decisions they make in the game affects the story outcome. There's role play that you can add in. So we always have our players play as scientists, and then we get them to make their own scientist character, Professor so-and-so, who studies whatever, and that's quite fun. In terms of competency, you can have mixed puzzles that target different skills for a bit of variety. You can make sure that the puzzles are just beatable, so that sweet spot between it's challenging, but it's also still fun. Having rewards in the escape room, so things you can find, things you can unlock, that shows that you're progressing through the escape room, and that shows that your competency is good. And then dosing information. So that means not having all the information available at once and overwhelming people, but having just the information they need to get to the next step. Then in terms of relatedness, obviously players play as a team, so there's a social element there. If you have an actor in the escape room, it's even better, more engagement there. And then the rewards are also a really good opportunity for team bonding when you've unlocked something and you can celebrate. So I'd like to touch on the puzzle content. I like to have 3 to 4 big STEM puzzles. So this would be the puzzles that have the actual science content. And then in order to get access to those puzzles, you have to complete some smaller, more traditional escape room type puzzles. So for example, here I've got a notebook that's locked. On the back, it's got a cryptic post-it note with icons. You match those to the books. The order of the books gives you a code. You unlock the notebook, and then you've got access to a big STEM puzzle. So this happens about 3 times, and it's non-linear, so you can approach this in any different way. And then usually all 3 of these combine to a bigger puzzle, and usually that has some sort of twist in the story as well. So in terms of the room layout, this is what it looks like visually. So as I say, you've got these 3 strands that are non-linear, so people can approach them in any different way, and then they all combine to, you get little bits of information from each one that then they can attempt this big puzzle at the end. So that shows progression and competency as well. So there's a nice balance between the 2. I also want to touch briefly on immersion and flow. I think it's really important to get people really immersed in the experience so they're fully engaged with what they're doing. So for example, that's really small, sorry about that. So a good story can overcome the logistical limitations you have as well if you write it into the story. Good set design and theatrical elements make people really feel like they're there. So for example, having a fog machine that blows fog inside the room and acting like there's a gas leak, and then also having an actor to add that theatrical element, so the actor's going crazy thinking, oh no, we're going to be poisoned. That makes it really fun. Actors are really great. I use them in all my escape rooms. One, because of the immersion and relatedness that I mentioned before, but also they can act as a bit of a buffer because not everybody is really confident with STEM. And so the actor can be there to kind of give a bit more guidance, give a bit more support for people who are a little bit more unsure. And that means that everybody can have the same positive experience. They can also protect your materials. So obviously we're not all professional grade escape room artists and so on. So sometimes the material's a little bit delicate and the actor can provide some protection there. And they're great for evaluation as well because you can interview the actor at the end as well. Also celebration, I really wanted to emphasize this. I think it's important to make a big deal out of your players' achievements with photos, with score sheets, with story endings, because at the end of the day, you want people to have a positive experience so that they want to come back, they want to engage in another science activity. So I think that's all I've got time for. So again, thank you for having me. And I just want to acknowledge Biorbic Research Centre and Trinity Research in Social Science for funding me to come here today. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if there's any time for questions. One question, anybody?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask real quick, how do you get into escape rooms in STEM science? How do you even breach that idea to the powers that be?
I think they're really interactive, they're really fun. If I was pitching it, I suppose, to my management, I would show them examples of where it's been done, because they look so great, they look so interesting and fun, and the evaluation from them is really great. You could always cite my paper, which shows how successful it was. So that would be another tactic maybe, but yeah, just showing them how good it is, basically. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you very much.
So today I'm going to take you on a journey through cancer control, bridging the gap between science and society, sharing my own personal experience. So cancer is defined as an uncontrolled growth of abnormal cells, and according to WHO in 2020, a staggering 10 million lives were claimed by cancer. 70% of those were in middle and low-income countries, which stresses on the importance of early detection and spreading awareness. So cancer is not only cells multiplying, it poses an imminent threat. And in order to combat it, I believe that we need to study it from reliable sources. I developed an interest about cancer and pathology during my early years at the dental school in Palestine, which led me to pursue a master's degree in oral pathology at Queen Mary University of London, Barts and London, where I worked on cancer-related projects. And as I intend to become a specialist in the field, hopefully in the future, currently I'm pursuing my PhD at Kyushu University in oral pathology. So Kyushu University, Japan, a different language, different culture. It's a challenge that I'm willing to accept because I aim in the future to spread awareness among the aging Japanese community about cancer. And I genuinely believe that gaining knowledge is only meaningful when it's applied. That's why I joined Alkhatib University in Palestine at the Institute of Dentistry, where I worked as a lecturer, and I taught obviously oral pathology and medicine for dental students. And during that time, we collaborated with dentists from University of Dundee in Scotland, and we took it further and we collaborated in making workshops for the dentists who work at the Palestinian Ministry of Health, where we talked also about oral cancer. But from clinical point of view, I am a dentist myself. So I made sure that all patients that come and visit me in my clinic, I will teach them a little bit about the importance of self-screening that they can do at home. And I think this is very important because with early detection, you can get up to 90% survival rate with oral cancer. I also took it to the surgery part where I collaborated with surgeons in cancer removal surgeries from the head and neck region, where I wanted to understand how impactful such surgeries can have on the life of those patients. During my master's degree and my PhD, as I said, I worked on cancer-related projects, so I seized every opportunity to present my work to the scientific community. But I also make sure that the non-scientific community, the general public, also should be able to understand more about cancer and oral cancer. That's why I joined as a spokesperson Al-Hayat Association for Cancer Control, which is a Palestinian association that leads cancer campaigns. They have offers like discounted treatment or free treatment for cancer, obviously in collaboration with hospitals, or free different diagnostic modalities for cancer. And through some of our events, we go on TV, radio, we talk about cancer, and we go to schools where and universities where we hope that the knowledge we share with them, they will also share with their relatives. So stepping out of your comfort zone is really important if you want to make a genuine impact. That's why in 2021, I joined animal-free research at Queen Mary University of London, where I joined a summer school where I conducted a project where they use machine learning in predicting the prognosis of head and neck tumors, something I had previously no knowledge at all. So it was challenging, but it helped shape the person I am today, and it helped open up and expand my intellectual horizons, think of things differently and see things differently. And I also see myself as a global citizen. That's why I would like to spread knowledge worldwide as much as possible. That's why I also seize every opportunity to join international conferences and talk about cancer, oral cancer, or any other pathology that I feel that there is not enough knowledge around. And using every platform. So, as a celebration of World Cancer Day, as part of Al-Hayat Association, I thought that I should reach out to my connections. So this guy, he is a patient at my dental clinic, and he's a chef. So I said, how about we collaborate? I come to the restaurant where you work in, and you can teach us, and we filmed an episode on that, you can teach us how to cook anti-cancer or ingredients that are antioxidant, very simple recipes, and then we can film it and then spread it on our socials. In terms of cancer control promotion. he agreed, and it was a really hit in Bethlehem. And this is my personal trainer, like fitness trainer, Mr. Adil Julani. So I said, Mr. Adil, how about we do an activity as a celebration of this day where we bring people and you teach us how to do sports and we can somehow connect it to cancer. So he said, okay, I'll teach you some exercises. If you do it, cancer patients, they will regain their fitness and strength, but also it can positively influence their treatment. So we did that too, and we also posted it, obviously, on our social media platforms. So that's why I said use every platform. Could be online, could be offline, could be using your connections. You can do it. The thing is that once you undertake any task, I believe you should do it with good intentions and kind attitude, and it will definitely reach a very wide audience. Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Any questions?
How do you self-screen for oral cancer?
So the way you do it is that you hold a mirror, and then we teach the patients how to check the internal oral mucosa, so their labial mucosa, buccal mucosa, how they should lift their tongue, look underneath their tongue. So there are areas in the mouth that are more likely to get malignant or pre-malignant lesions. So we just ask them to look for changes in color, changes in texture, and for example, a non-healing ulcer for over 10 days for no reason. It's not like they bit their tongue or something. So yeah, that's like the simple thing. Obviously, that's what you do at home, and if you feel anything suspicious, you go to your dentist. Thank you. Finished. All right, thank you.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Aileen. I'm a PhD student. I'm spending a year at Tokyo Tech, but I'm mostly based at Imperial College London. And I'm offering a slightly unorthodox talk today on sort of creative writing in science, partly because I like sci-fi, and partly because I think it's actually got a really valuable role to play in excuse me, science communication. So I want to emphasize that I'm not talking about science journalism or sort of non-fiction stuff today. I'm talking about fiction, because I think, yeah, it's got a really important role to play. So to begin with, I just want to introduce some feedback from a a big poll in London in 2019. And they asked the public, when I talk about science, what comes to mind? And here's a sort of infographic or demonstration of the terms that people came up with. And some of them are really obvious. So physics, chemistry, biology, people think about science and think about what they studied at school. But then something which I think is really optimistic is that lots of people spoke about more interesting terms like development, progress, inventions, discovery. So the public knows that science is a really exciting field to be in. Perhaps they don't know exactly what that means, but they understand that it's all about development and coming up with new ideas. And implicitly, science is a very creative exercise. So although I'm a scientist, my research field is biochemistry. I often go to conferences in my field, and I go to talks, and I actually don't really know what the talks are about. So even within my own field, I'm very much like an amateur. And then science itself is extremely broad. So I'm just going to introduce a couple of topics, which maybe are sort of like hot topics right now in science. So there's AI and robotics, the three-body problem, some of you probably have heard of, dimensionality, that applies. Some of these kind of relate to each other as well. De-extinction, there's a big startup, I think in Australia right now, looking into de-extinction, machine translation, and genetic engineering. So these topics have nothing to do with what I research, and if someone asked me about them, I wouldn't really be able to answer very effectively, although I am a scientist myself. So here's another sort of public attitude to science. So 55% of the public agree that science and technology are too specialized for most people to understand them. And like I said, as a scientist myself, I even feel that. So one way that we can sort of make science more understandable is using sort of imagery and visual media. So sometimes you can add like pictures and you can understand, okay, what some of these concepts I'm talking about. Dimensionality, you can think of Rubik's Cube, de-extinction like dinosaurs, genetic engineering, you think about having a petri dish and doing science in a lab. But another way which I think is really impactful and maybe a little bit unexplored is looking at non-fiction. So the reason I chose these 6 topics today is because they relate to quite famous fictional science works, aka science fiction. So AI and robotics. To start with Jurassic Park. So you can probably imagine in your head what topic that relates to, the extinction. The three-body problem is really obvious. It relates to the three-body problem. It's a really nice science fiction book by a Chinese author. It really introduces physical concepts in a really accessible way. Flatlands is quite an old Victorian novel. Talks about dimensionality. It's about basically a 2D world where everyone is sticks and circles. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The reason I put it as machine translation is because it introduces this idea of the Babelfish, which is basically like what we have nowadays, like Google Translate. It's like an early idea thinking about how you can translate languages on demand. iRobot, which actually then became a film, and the film is slightly different to the novel, but that was the film itself and also the novel really introduced the idea of like sentience in robotics way before AI became as developed as it is nowadays. And finally, Brave New World is a book which many of you probably have heard of. It's about basically an utopian society where people don't reproduce naturally. It's all sort of done by the government. So I just wanted to introduce these topics because perhaps you've heard of some of these books, and I think that they are really effective ways of introducing some quite heavy scientific ideas to sort of members of the public who maybe otherwise wouldn't have come across them. And leading on from that, I wanted to sort of think about what's the role of SciCom. So I'm sure we all are here today from different sort of angles of science communication. And I think one of the most important aspects of SciCom is having that dialogue with the public. So although creative writing is a sort of one-way dialogue, so it's just a consumption media, it's not a two-way process, I think it still has a really important role to play in basically initiating discourse in the public around science. And leading on from that, SciCom is really important in policy and basically lobbying. So in order to sort of have governments make laws that are important for science and that scientists agree with, I think science communication has a really important role. And then leading on from that, I think that sci-fi can have a really important role in making the public on board with whatever ideas we're trying to disseminate. So it might be a little bit of a leap for some of us, but I think that literature can be a form of soft power. Soft power we normally talk about in terms of politics and kind of heavy things, maybe like war and trade, but science is like implicitly integrated with politics too. So I think by introducing concepts that we think are important via such methods as creative writing, we can then influence government and we can have the policies that we want that is important as scientists. And we can relate that to sort of elements of a manifesto. So in a manifesto, you declare your principles and beliefs. You could do that in creative writing. You can make utopian society. You can make whatever world you want in that book and introduce those ideas. You can make a vision of the future and explore the sort of ethics around that. And you can introduce emotional rhetoric, which really engages with people's reactions and makes them more likely to be interested in whatever subject you're talking about. And finally, it's accessible. So although if you're writing, it's going to be in a particular language, some of the best science fiction has been translated into multiple languages. So if you're interested in creative writing, if that's going to be sort of your media of choice when it comes to SciCom, there's a couple of ways to kind of get yourself motivated. So there's loads of competitions. They're not explicitly sort of sci-fi or science related, but here are just some examples of international competitions where you can you could apply with your short story and win cash prizes. You could join a writing group, so there's a writing group in Tokyo, like Tokyo Writers Meetup. Again, motivate each other to write. And you can either do that in person or you could join a virtual community. So this NaNoWriMo is like a US-based organization, and they basically send you emails and have little competitions every month to get you motivated to do your writing. And also read often, because that will give you new ideas for your own writing. So yeah, that's me. I think I've gone over. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for coming to JSF this year, and it's a pleasure to be here and talk to people face to face. I'm going to talk very briefly about the JSF socials, which I'm sure many of you know. These are short events we do every other month. Myself and Ayumi organized them last year. This year we also have Ray, who's here somewhere. Thanks, Ray. And Nicola, who I'm afraid hasn't been able to join us today, who organize these events. Every time, it's a very simple format, same format, 90 minutes every third Thursday of the month, of odd months, so May, July, and so on. And we have two speakers. So part of the idea is to kind of bridge between Japan and international science communicators. So we have two 20-minute presentations with a 10-minute discussion afterwards, and then 20 minutes at the end to sort of wrap up. The goal of the JSF is to build community to a certain extent, and then the JSF socials kind of act as a sort of something to keep the ball rolling throughout the year. So every other month we get together online, and it just helps sort of grow the community. And so that's kind of what we've made the goal of the JSF socials, to make a community. The way we do it is involving the community, so we get feedback from events like this, past events, then also we add a few of our own suggestions, and then everybody in the community, we send this out to the mailing list, and people vote on what they want to hear, and then as the organizers, we find speakers to talk about it. Last year, we did 6 events, hybrid and online events, which was right in the middle of the corona crisis, so that was quite topical, growing social media, things about careers, content, and skills, so things that people are, as science communicators, are interested in. But how do we measure what we're doing? So we, at the beginning of this, Ayumi and I set up an OKR system, objectives and key results. This is quite popular in Google and Twitter and all these sort of tech companies. The objective is something qualitative. So we're trying to build a sense of community. My public relations staff working in English and Japanese universities. And the key results are the quantitative things that you can actually measure. So we set 7 key results: hold regular events, increase the attendance, invite excellent speakers from in Japan and around the world, and then ensure that we're providing appropriate content that the people is interested in, and that we're providing an inclusive space. We achieved what we expected for what we hoped to achieve with all of this, except for actually increasing the attendance. So we got between 20 and 30 people or so, but our average was about 22.5, which unfortunately is not quite as good as we hoped, but that's something to work on. Feedback comments from people were, thanks for organizing the event, thanks for organizing the series, keep it up. And then one person commented that maybe we should try also a slightly more relaxed and informal format as well, which I think we probably will at some point. We made sure to focus on getting a diverse number of speakers. Because of the time zones, most of our people were from speakers were from the EU or from Japan. This is something we really want to work on improving in this year. And the people who are listening, again, science communicators are our target audience, and that's a lot of the people that were there. We also got a number of faculty taking part too. This year, as Tilina mentioned earlier, I think Charlotte has been an intern for us at JSF, and she's done a lot of really great data crunching for us. So she put together she put keywords to all of the requests that we've had for topics for JSF Social, and then she also put keywords to all of the discussion that went on at the meetings. And if you look at the graph there, maybe you can see a correlation, perhaps, I hope. It seems to go up to the right, which is probably where we want to go. So things, for example, like strategy and skills clearly are things that people want to hear about, and that's what we've definitely managed to cover, I think. Other things, for example, research, well, I mean, it's not something people request, but it's going to be there anytime we talk as science communicators. The research is going to be part of the conversation. And then other things like trends, international topics, frameworks, journalism, these things are all in there as well. So anyway, it's important that we do provide the sort of content that the community looks for, and so we're going to continue trying to improve on that. So this year, I'm very sorry to say I haven't been in quite so well as last. We should have had 4 meetings so far, but we've only managed to do 2 because of, well, basically because of me being a bit stressed out and not keeping the ball rolling, really, so sorry about that. I'm a bit less stressed than I was earlier. We've had 2 really good talks, Impact of AI Technologies on Press Officers and Journalists. These are, of course, on the channel, the YouTube channel, so you can see them there. And another really good talk, Science Communication in South Africa and Japan, so comparing the situation in those 2 countries. Well, describing the situation in each country. For this coming, the coming 4 talks that we have left, basically we're going to do a couple of catch-ups, I think. So it will be December, January, February, March, probably. So the next one in December 21st, if you're interested, we're going to have a journalist from the Japan Times and hopefully another journalist talking about what they want us to be providing them. So I think that should be a really useful event. We're going to try and get some famous science communicators to come and talk about their career paths. We've already heard a little bit today, this morning, about that. And then how academics can use social media and communicating humanities and arts research. So that's kind of the plan for the rest of the year, and we hope to see a lot of you there. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jonas. I actually work right here at OIST. I think you might have seen this today already. And I just want to briefly introduce our scientific visiting program that we have here. So maybe you can tell your researcher colleagues about it. So OIST was founded about 12 years ago as a university. And this is what we aim to do as an institution, to be a destination of choice, to work, learn and collaborate, linking science and education and leading to innovation and entrepreneurship. Since it has a destination right there in the aim, so I think it's very important that we really become a destination and invite researchers from all around the world to come to OIST and work together with us. And I also think that it's really important that if you, as a researcher, come to a different environment, you talk to different people, and very often that generates new ideas and perspectives, and that can be crucial for scientific breakthroughs. So the visiting program has started in 2021. Of course, that was still COVID time, so basically no one came. Then 2022, it really started. That's also since when I met OIST to run this program. And then we had 20 visitors, and this year we expect that it will go up to 100, and in the future, hopefully go up to 250 plus per year. And then we also hope to invite more people from other backgrounds, like from the arts or social sciences. So right now we span all research areas that are presented at OIST, but with a focus on theoretical science, because if you're a mathematician or theoretical physicist or theoretical biologist, then it's very often the case that you need people to talk to generate ideas, whereas experimentalists can basically generate the ideas from the experiment itself. So what we have is so-called visiting scholars, where people visit from 3 months up to a full year. And the other very important thing that we have since this year is so-called thematic programs, where 20 to 40 people come at the same time to really focus on one particular topic. So basically you get every researcher who works in one very small particular area that might be on the cusp of a breakthrough, you get them all together, and hopefully that will generate some great ideas. And particularly for those of you who are in Japan, maybe you can tell your colleagues that we also have a domestic program, so they can very easily come to OIST and enjoy these kind of views from the office. So this is our actual office. We also have a nice meeting area in the middle, and of course there's coffee and so on. What else do we do at the program? Okay, this slide is a bit messed up, but let's see. So every long-term visitor who comes visit us gives a so-called TSVP talk. This is supposed to be for a general audience. So we hope that this benefits everyone, and we usually record them and put them on YouTube. And well, usually these are on very particular topics. For example, here on the top left is one on knots. So this might not be a mainstream topic, but surprisingly, even though we have just done this for about 1 year now, The average views on that of YouTube are over 250, and in total we have over 5,000 views on that playlist without doing any marketing or something like that. And the other thing we like to encourage our visitors to do is give talks at schools. So this is, of course, together with the lovely organizers you've all met today from OIST Community and Public Relations. So not just OIST researchers go to schools, but also our visitors and give some talks in the science clubs and so on. And yeah, this was supposed to show up later, but one of our visitors has just this week been named as highly cited researcher. So you can see that maybe this kind of visiting program can have an impact on creativity. And the important thing is that he gave a talk to OIST students and OIST researchers about how to write a lot and well, to which some students came to me afterwards and said this was one of the best career talks they've heard. So I think that was a very nice thing. And apart from these like scientific or outreach talks, there's also completely different events. For example, one of the researchers we hosted did an art performance in Naha, in the south of Okinawa, where robots interact with a dancer. So there was drones and little robots that were kind of following her and dancing together with her. So that was a quite interesting event. Of course, not directly organized by the visiting program, but enabled by the fact that he was in Okinawa doing research. And of course, we also have social events where we meet. And finally, this is an event we organized in April, which I thought was very nice. So it was one of our visitors from France, Anatole Lecuyer, together with OIST researcher Shunichi Kasahara. They both work on metaverse and virtual reality. So they had a seminar on the day and in the evening public outreach talks, where they also included lab tours where you could, for example, do this kind of thing where two people, their face morphs together. And so their research question is, when do you not recognize yourself anymore? So this was open to anyone in Okinawa, and we had high schoolers and children coming, so this was a very nice event. And the very final thing I want to mention is this paper on whether or not octopuses dream was also an interaction with one of our visitors together with OIST Professor Sam Reiter. And maybe we have very short time for questions, so while I wait for the first one, I just play this video without sound.
Octopuses sleep.
Maybe not.
Incredible pattern.
Well, okay, then let's just look at the picture of the octopus. Maybe you can watch it later. So any question?
How do you get started, like starting this up from the beginning? If you don't have a visiting scholars program to begin with at your institute, how does that talk even begin?
So the way it started at OIST is some professors, in this particular case from mathematics and theoretical physics, they got together and said, we really need a visiting program. Of course, this idea is not new. So this visiting programs in the US and in Europe, they have been around for a long time. So the idea is that you get people from outside and talk to them for a few months, and that way generate new ideas. So professors got together and said, we really need that at OIST too. They pitched the idea to OIST executives and the OIST Board of Governors. Basically, everyone supported the idea because, I mean, Okinawa is pretty obviously a nice destination for people to come, so they would like to come, and you can also get high-profile people to get here. Yeah, that's the way it started, and then they looked at other places in the world where it works well, and we took the ideas we like and started doing it. Okay, thanks.
Hi everyone, so I'll be the last one giving a flash talk today, I think. Yeah. And my name is Charlotte, and I'm a graduate student from the Netherlands studying neuroscience and cognition at Utrecht University. And I was also an intern at JSF. So in this talk, I would like to tell you a bit about one of the projects that I did during my time at JSF, which was about an analysis in order to improve future JSF events. So first, I would like to explain why I did the analysis and also how the mentality behind public engagement really fits into this, because this bidirectional communication really applies to JSF and its community as well. So the way that JSF works is that they reach out to experts from different sides of the field of science communication who will then give talks or workshops at the JSF events, including the socials and the conferences, about their expertise. And then JSF invites their community or the visitors to fill in these surveys to ask them about what they thought of the event and if they have any ideas or topics for the future events. And JSF then aims to use this information to improve this whole loop and thereby improve their future JSF events before the community reaches out to the public and applies their knowledge. So by doing this, JSF has collected 2 big groups of information over the years. One being the long list of topics that have been discussed at the events, and the other one being the big pile of surveys that have been filled out by the community members. The thing is that JSF has so far not had the chance to do proper analysis on these groups of data. So that's where I come in, and I basically compared these 2 groups of information and had a look at whether JSF is on the right track and if they discuss what the community wants to see. So the thing with the data that I looked at is that most of it was qualitative data, meaning that everyone had their own way of wording things in the answer. So I had to come up with a way to compile everything and make it comparable, and I did that through something called keywording. So what I did is I looked at the individual sentences from the surveys and then made the important key messages from each sentence bold, and then tried to assign them to these words that are considered key terms within science communication. So things like public relations or science journalism, or the ones listed over here. And once I'd done that, I went back to the data and then tried to counted the frequency of each keyword to see how many times they were mentioned in the surveys, after which I could put them into the heat maps, which ended up like this. And then when I tried to make it more visual, I ended up with this. So this is basically the information or the topics requested by the community compared with what has been presented at the events. And there are a few conclusions you can draw from this graph. The first one being that there seems to be 3 levels of engagement with the community, between JSF and the community. First one being the exploratory, the participatory, the preparatory and the participatory. And the first one basically involves the JSF community that is engaged in exploring different fields within science communication, which isn't really a big part of what's discussed at the different JSF events, but it has a very large topical diversity. And then there's a middle group, which is the preparatory level. So this is the JSF community that is engaged in the implementation of information in a variety of ways. And then you have the final group, which is the participatory level, which is the active participation in science communication efforts, which is the largest group that's actually discussed at JSF events, but with the smallest topical diversity. So that's the first conclusion. The second conclusion you can draw is that most topics that are requested by the community, or most requested by the community, seem to be focusing on how to do something. So practical information, so skills or strategy or framework. So this shows really a wish for future events to focus on a how-to mindset. How do I do something in science communication? So main takeaways from this presentation is that basically JSF has 3 levels of engagement with its community, and this community wishes to see future events focusing on practical topics and a how-to mindset. And analyses like these show how important it is to have frequent engagement and communication with your community. But input is also really valuable because it can only grow the data set and give better insight into this whole process. So at the end of this event, please be involved and fill in the surveys because you can help shape future JSF events. And yeah, thank you JSF for giving me the opportunity to do this internship, and thank you for listening. So, yeah, okay. I think there's room for questions.
Well, thank you for this analysis. I just have one question on kind of your methodology. Do you have any information on the identity of the respondents? So, in another way, are the people who request talking about strategy also the ones who discuss strategy most? Do you?
Yeah, I also looked into the background of people. So the information or the data sets that I had also gave information about what the background of the people gave the feedback was. So yeah, is that
so that's not exactly what I meant. So the people who discuss things in the socials, right? They have identities, right? As you said, you have some information on them, and then you have also information on the identity of the people who request things. How can I say? Is it the same people who request certain topics that also talk about the topics in the socials, or is it different kinds of people?
So the surveys that I looked at were not the people who also presented at the socials. So yeah, okay, sorry. We can talk about it later, sorry.